Delighted on this episode of Words, Images, and Worlds to be talking with Scott Fogg and Charlie McElvy. I've talked with you both separately, but here you are in the same space. So
Yeah.
I can confirm that you are not the same person. It's not a Clark Kent Superman situation. You are in fact separate ontologies unless this has been afforded by AI in some way.
We
I wasn't
do
going to
look
mention that.
very similar.
Yeah.
We're constantly getting confused.
I was
Same,
signing
same.
Scott's name at Baltimore all weekend. It was great. I can't even spell fog, but like,
Two G's, two
oh,
G's.
that's what it is.
That's
Dang.
right. There's no silent Z in that. There's no silent Z. Well, on this episode, we're talking about Claymore, which is a brand new product, a brand new story from both of you. Product feels kind of like a piece of plastic, but a brand new story from the two of you. And I would first be curious about the way that you connected.
Well, we
So
were both on Tinder. Oh, sorry.
that's between us.
Oh,
We have the
Swipe
approved story.
right.
go
Let's
ahead,
pull
Scott.
up that script. Let's pull up that script.
So I don't know how Charlie came to know me specifically. I got to know Charlie or know of Charlie through a mutual friend, Vito Del Sante, who I had been working with him on. He helped me with my first graphic novel, Phileas Reed, and then he and I were co-writing Action Lab Dog of Wonder for a little bit. And he kept talking about this guy, Charlie, that oh, you would love him. You should totally meet him. And I don't remember specifically the moment it happened, but like because we've only been in the room together once when I was able to come up to Baltimore Comic Con 2 years ago. But Charlie ended up reaching out to me, and wondering if I would be interested in helping write something for him or with him. And I was like, yeah, I'm always down to write something. And so from there, we've just kind of kept working together. And now, kind of working with him and his publishing company, Zion Studios, and its imprint, Blind Squirrel Comics, to get our comics out into the world.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summation. I mean, Vito likewise was the connection point. I was looking for, so when I did Spider Squirrel Volume One of the things I wanted to do was like this, not an anthology, but kinda. And really, it was about bringing the community together. Now, it was twofold purpose. One, on the business side, I was thinking, oh, if I have more creators working on my book, then they're going to want to promote it more too, because that's always the case, right? Generally speaking, people are proud of their work and they want to be able to showcase it. And for a lot of individuals, it was their first time getting published in print, so it was a good opportunity for that. But more to the point was it gave me a chance to actually showcase Scott's creations and Eric's creations and all these other Vito's even and other creations from different creators. And it gave me a sense of pride to be able to say, hey, I was able to contribute to the community, not just be a taker, but a partaker, and it was great. And so Vito had suggested I reach out to Scott, and so Scott and I talked, and I don't remember exactly the formation of it all, but ultimately I
I
said, "Hey, I'll put my character in your universe. What do you think of that?" Yeah,
Right. That's I forgot it was that particular project. He had his Spider Squirrel book, and
Yeah.
in the story, Spider Squirrel jumps through the multiverse. And so he got together. I thought it was a brilliant idea. I still think it's a brilliant idea to bring on other indie artists, to go, hey, here's 5 pages, here's 6 pages in this big story that I'm doing where my character will drop into your world. And so I took the opportunity, I like, absolutely. And I was able to get the band back together, that made Phileas, and write a little story that kind of served as a sequel in its own little way. I told all my followers, I'm like, this is canon. This is what happens after the book. So if you want to know what happens next, pick this book up. And that's right. It was that project. That was a lot of fun.
yep. So then Scott came to me, I don't know, a month or maybe a year or so later, a few months later at least, and talked about Night Care, which was our first true collaboration together. I mean, full collaboration
Yeah.
together rather than just a single story. And I was more than thrilled to. I thought it was a great concept, beautiful art, really fun story, approachable too. Like I have adults that buy it and read it and love it, and I have kids that buy it and read it and love it. So it really stretches the generations in a very smart way. So really proud of the Night Care book that Scott produced and I was able to publish. And then here we are today with us, right? So
Yeah.
Scott came to me and said, "Dude." I got something different,
Mhm.
way different.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
This is, Claymore is a different step for me, I think, as far as if people have been following and reading all of my stuff, because I tend, or I have written more for a wide general audience, keeping the children in mind while telling stories that still entertain me, which is what Night Care is. Like, at cons going, if you like the Teen Titans cartoon, and most adults that I know do, you will enjoy this. It's written with the same kind of idea in mind. Claymore definitely skews mature. Like, that was kind of a very specific decision that I made in telling. Once I had the story concept, I was like, I don't think I'm interested in the sanitized version of this world. I think it needs to be this gritty, specifically on purpose. So this is a more mature book, but I don't think there's anything, you know, wildly offensive in it.
No.
So I think, as almost, I don't know, anybody who grew up watching movies in the 80s and 90s, there was a couple of back-to-back Western films specifically that grabbed my imagination and never let go. The first was Young Guns and Young Guns 2, followed up very
mhm.
quickly with Tombstone. You're just like, oh, I need more of this. And going back, like, the Western is it's very American, as far as like a storytelling genre goes. It's one that I feel like, I will admit, I don't feel like I see a whole lot of in comics. Like, Cullen Bunn has The Sixth Gun, which I really enjoy. And then you'll have things like Jonah Hex showing up. And so there was a part of me that was like, this feels a little untapped. There are fantasy comics. This is definitely a fantasy story. But as far as like the Western genre goes, it feels like I'm looking around, and maybe I'm blind to it. I'd love to know more. I don't see a whole lot of them. I know they exist. I see them, but like, there's not a lot. So to me, it was exciting to go into a genre that I hadn't been able to explore, but also that, maybe stands out a little bit. Maybe is something that people aren't familiar with. And as far as like um, the different types of audiences, I when I'm not writing, I work at a comic book store, and one of my favorite things is to get people reading. Parents will come in sometimes, and they're like, that age-old thing of like, oh, I want my kid to read, but I want him reading comics. I'm like, if you want your kid to read, give them comics. Like,
Yeah.
it is the perfect gateway drug to real books. If they read
Mhm.
Batman and then they meet Superman, and then they find out parts of Superman's stories inspired by Homer's The Iliad and the Odyssey, it's all of a sudden it's like, oh, I need all of it. Batman's like this guy named Sherlock Holmes. What are you talking about? It leads to other things. And so likewise, I have a lot of friends who enjoy entertainment, but maybe they don't read a lot. They might do some audiobooks from time to time, but they're big fans of movies. They'll watch any movie that comes out. And so being able to hand them a comic, again, comics are so wonderful because it's a bridge of visual art and the written word, in a way that, like, I feel like helps bring some people over and introduce them to, like, you can read and it can be fun. It can be these things, and you don't have to leave comics. I'm not saying comics is less than any other form of storytelling. But if you're interested in getting into those other things, let's start here. You already like the Avengers. Let's read some Avengers books together. Let's try this. Have you seen this character? Have you tried this? Like, I did that all the time with people in the store. They would come in and I would go, "What movies do you like?" "Oh, I don't know, I like scary movies." "Cool. Have you read Something's Killing the Children? Have you heard of that? Follow me." And I would take them to the
Mm.
horror section. I'm like, whatever you're into, it exists, as a genre. Or most of your TV shows have become comic books. Here's Buffy, here's Doctor Who, here's Transformers. What are you into? Like, it's there, which to me is part of the fun and excitement of a writing, but also getting to read, getting to read some of these stories that are in all these different genres. So, yeah.
Yeah, as a fan, as a reader, I love what's available right now, and what I hope continues to be available for readers across genres. Charlie, anything that you'd like to say about what Westerns have meant to you or your introduction to that genre in comics?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually other I'm just backtracking here and making sure I'm right on it. But I've never really read Western comics, and so not well, Claymore notwithstanding. Clearly, I read that one,
Okay.
um, but yeah, it was never a genre that I got into in comics. Of course, I'm older than Scott by a little bit there. So 80s and 90s was like, okay, yeah, I'm already like formed here. So, yeah, I think, when people say 20 years ago, I'm thinking we're talking about the 2000s, or sorry, the 90s, and we're talking about the 2000s, right? So, um, but I did grow up with westerns because my grandfather watched Gunsmoke, and anytime CBS was airing, like the Sunday night movie was something like the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or
Mhm.
whatever. Pick your western of flavor. In the late 70s or early 80s, and I was watching it, and so it was definitely. And funny enough, Scott talked about gateway drugs, like that led me to have this passion for kung fu. And I got into kung fu theater and all this other, and martial arts became a big thing. So I 100% agree with Scott. And every time I've done a speaking engagement, I've done several at my local store, at a couple libraries, bookstores, and I talk about comics, and I mentioned the exact same thing. Like, it's literature.
Mhm.
I was a spelling bee champ. I did all these great things, not because I read like these prolific authors from the Victorian era or anything like that. I read comics. I knew how to spell aerodynamic by the time I was 8 years old. Is why? Because I'm reading the Marvel Handbook on hardware, weapons, and paraphernalia, and it has. By the way, I can spell paraphernalia. At 8 years old, because I'm voraciously consuming this, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, in the context of Westerns, again, don't have a lot of experience personally in the book space. The closest I think I've ever gotten was um, mostly apocalyptic stuff like Geiger or
Yeah.
Why the Last Man to some extent, although that's more just straight dystopian, I guess. So
But
yeah, but
I think a lot of post-apocalyptic stories
tend to
borrow
be,
from
yeah,
the Western genre a lot. Like you see a lot of those
exactly.
same tropes, the stranger coming into town,
Fist of
and
the North
Mhm.
Star manga is just that, right?
yeah.
It's very dystopian, it's very Western, even though it's a manga, right? Very, but anyway, I mean, that's kind of my take on it. I just really agree with Scott. And while, yes, Young Guns was super like important to me because it was that, oh, Westerns are really freaking cool moment for me. And
Yeah.
I'm a late teenager at this point. One of the first things that I did when my son was old enough to watch it, I was like, dude, we're watching Young Guns. He's
Yeah.
like, really, a cowboy movie? And I'm like, bro, you have
Yeah.
no idea. And then we start doing the Tombstone tour and everything
Yeah.
else. So yeah.
Also the movie that
That-
introduced me to Bon Jovi, so it's like it's all good all around.
Love those cultural connections, absolutely. And Fist of the North Star, like that goes way back with me of mature storytelling and those moments where you're looking at a narrative and you're like, oh my gosh, this just happened.
Mhm.
So absolutely, absolutely.
And
Anything about the wider creative team that you'd like to mention?
like the whole creative team that we're getting to work with.
Hmm.
Absolutely. So it's one thing to have an idea, and it's another thing to find the right people to make the thing with you and to kind of see your vision and to kind of collaborate and make it their own, because that's also very important to me. Is I don't want to be dictatorial about it. Like I have certain things in my mind that I want to go like, okay, this is how this character looks or how I feel about it. But at the end of the day, I want the art team also to say, I designed this. This is my character. Like I need that. So finding someone to be able to do that with is so important. And so once I had the idea, I had the script, um, I knew I needed somebody because this isn't a superhero book. And so it's like I need somebody who's willing and interested in drawing cowboys, for the lack of a better word, for 28 pages, sprinkled in with some monsters. And so I was like, well, who's out there who's doing that right now? And I realized, I said, well, maybe I don't think about it as a Western book, maybe I lean more towards fantasy. Like if a lot of the fantasy clothes that you see even in like Dungeons and Dragons borrows from that time period, like the vests and the poofy sleeves and the dresses. It's like, okay, so if you're interested and willing to draw those, then the Western shouldn't be too far. And that's when I immediately went to, there was a book, it came out from Vault Comics. It was called Quests Aside. And I had just read it. And I was like, oh, I would love to get somebody like that who drew that. Um, and I was like, you know what? Let me see who that was. I don't remember that. I don't remember his name. Let me reach out to him. And oh, I think I have it right over. Yeah, I have it right here on my shelf. Sorry, I got distracted. Um, but his name is Len Gogu, and I found him on Instagram. I was like, hey, super random question. I love your work. I have something. Are you interested? Are you available? You know, and Len got back to me really quickly and was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. Let me read the script. Len read the script and was like, let's do this. And I was like, you kidding me? Like it was that easy? Like, no, the first person on my list is the person I get. That's awesome. And so
Uh,
Len Gogu he's an artist from Greece, which was really funny to me because my second or Night Care was the first two issues I created with George Cambadeus, who is also from Greece. So I don't know what Greece is doing with their art scene, but keep it up. You guys are killing it.
mhm.
Um, so I think Len lives in near or around Sparta. Um, and I only know that because of movies. I don't know where that is actually in Greece. But anyway, so we got started and um, he started drawing it, and then I was like, "Hey, we're going to need to color this book, obviously. Do you have a colorist you work with?" Because when I when I start working on a comic book, I one of the things that I will almost always defer to when it comes to the art is the visuals. Like I have an idea in my head, but like I'm a wordsmith and you draw pictures good. So you know what looks good in a panel, you know what looks good on a page. So do you have a colorist that you've worked with before that you like that gets your art or gets your style? Or do you need me to find somebody? Is there someone you've always wanted to work with? And Lynn got back with me really quick with there's this guy named Dennis Yatris, is how I believe the last name is pronounced. Also Greek, and he's like, we're friends. We've always wanted to work together, and I would say him. So I reached out to Dennis, and he said yes, and so we've been off to the races. That's basically the team. Um, I'm writing it and lettering it. Charlie, or sorry, is it Susan who's editing it? Uh,
Suzanne, yeah.
yeah. Um, so they're going back over it, making sure I don't like misspell words or leave words out. But that's really the team. It's a very small um, group, and it's really they've been wonderful to work with. Like I want to make many many more books with these guys. They've just been they've just absolutely killed it. There's things that I can trust them with, and there's things that I have been able to push back a little bit on and go, oh, hey, I love it, but and they're like, oh, yep, nope, I can fix that, not a problem. Missed that, sorry. Um, they've been a dream team, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I am a listener out there, anything that you would want me to know about Claymore, and let's talk about the broader world that you're creating of
Yeah.
comics and independent comics. Anything that you would like listeners to know about that?
So Claymore, there's several things I'd love for people to know about Claymore. First off, it's on Kickstarter right now. Um, and it is done. The book is complete. We just need to print it and ship it to you. So, as soon as it's successful, you are getting a comic and you'll get it in pretty quick order. It's just a matter of, like I said, the printer getting it back to us and us getting it to you. Um, the other thing is the first couple stories that I've outlined for Claymore are single issue adventures. That way you can pick up any of them and you get a complete story. They are building on each other so that by the end there will be a broader kind of tapestry that you can kind of see, but that is less important to me than the ability for you to walk up to my table and I go, "Oh, I've got issue two," and they go, "Oh, I let me start on issue one." I go, "Hey, no, actually, it was written just for this moment. You can have issue two, and you don't need to know anything." Likewise, knock on wood, let's say issue one is successful, but issue two never comes to fruition. You've got a complete story. You're not left with a cliffhanger and going like, "Oh man, now I never know what happens." It's like, no, no, you got it. That's the story. It does end with a setup, but it doesn't, you don't have to have it. It's kind of like if you only ever got to see Star Wars A New Hope. You get it. Yes, Darth Vader flew away in the TIE fighter at the end, so he's still out there somewhere, but like it's a complete story, beginning, middle, end. You don't need to know anything else. Um, so there's that, and that's very important to me for people to kind of also know. But then just generally speaking, the overall story of Claymore is um, Claymore is what there's a gentleman, the surly Scotsman named Robert Bollock, who has come to be known as Claymore, and he is a monster hunter that is wandering like the American West in the late 1800s, answering the call for if your town is being ravaged by some monster, something's happening in the woods, something's happening in the creek, people are going missing. They notify Claymore, and he comes with his giant, massive Claymore sword, and finds the monsters. Um, and so it's written. It's it's the kind of story I've always wanted to tell. I've never gotten to, and which is kind of like it's a love letter for me to some of the action movies, the period action movies, maybe specifically of the 80s that I love so much, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Young Gun movies, where you have a character, he comes into town, and even though you're just getting to know him, there's a rich history behind him. He in the town he winds up in, this isn't a spoiler, she's on the cover, he meets a woman from his past, and they have this very rocky, Indian Marion kind of relationship, which was just a lot of fun to write. Um, but no, at the end of the day, too, like the last thing I would kind of let people know about it is that it's not just a hack and slash book. Um, every single story that I write kind of begins with a question that I ask myself, which is, what do I have to say? What do I want to tell people? Um, and the first words of the comic are, the world is full of monsters, both real and imaginary. And Claymore fights both. Just because a monster is not something you're born as, a monster is something you choose to be. And so there's a lot of that kind of underlining in the story as well. He shows up to investigate the monster, but what is this actual situation here, kind of a thing. Um, so yeah, I mean, and like, again, getting to play in the West with cowboys, getting to tell stories with mythological creatures and other monsters and things it's a lot of fun. It's one of the most fun single issues that I've gotten to write, and I can't wait to share it with people.
Yeah, what I like about it as a publisher, just from a kind of a macro standpoint is Scott presented this idea of this episodic kind of a title. So, and I immediately started thinking, my 14-year-old daughter's reading all of my wife's old Nancy Drews, and it's like that, right? Where you know Carson's the dad because she calls him dad, right? You don't need to know anything more than that. You might find out what he does for a living, you might not in the particular issue, but none of that stuff's really relevant to the story. And everything that is relevant to that particular episode, that story, is contained within that issue. You don't need to know any more. You get even the friendships and stuff that carry forward. They're all defined episode by episode, and they stand on their own. And I really like. I think especially in today's Kickstarter market, but also just in the comic book market as a general viewpoint, is I think it's very beneficial to have something like that because it gives people the confidence that I can just pick up something,
Yes.
and I will enjoy it. Will I read every issue of Claymore? I may not, but I don't need to either. And that's the other thing is it doesn't it creates a sense of FOMO in the sense of if someone else is reading it and enjoying it, I'm going to go buy it, right? And so it's good. but it also doesn't force a reader to feel that unnecessary pressure that I have to go in and buy this book right now every single time
Yes.
because times are tough for different people at different
Yes.
times. They don't need to have the pressure, the added pressure of I want to enjoy this, but now my enjoyment becomes a stress, and so I
It
really
becomes
like
an
that.
obligation.
Yeah, I really like that episodic mentality. And you can read them out of order. So what if my store doesn't have issue one in stock? We're not even, as far as I know, I don't even know if we're even putting numbers on the covers yet. We're still kind of playing with the dress, but it could be titled just this, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. And then they don't need to know. And if they read them out of order, it's not going to screw them up. And it's
Yeah.
really freeing for a publisher, but it's also, I think it's freeing for Scott, and it's very,
Mhm.
very freeing for the readers and backers and supporters of the project who really just they're looking for comics are escapism, right? They're meant to take you out for a little bit. They're meant to let you enjoy your life. And even if you're telling a real life moral or a political view or whatever in such a kind of a macrocosmic way that's very meta narrative driven, I don't have to sit there and overthink it. I can just enjoy the freaking book. And if
Yeah.
I get the macro, I get it. If I don't, I don't. Who cares? As long as it's still fun, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's great. I love working with Scott. I think he's just a great talent. His passion is, I think, extremely obvious to everyone watching this, and if not, you're not paying attention. So
You really hit the nail on the head. I grew up reading the Hardy Boy books. I don't know if I've read all of them. I couldn't tell you which one was the first Hardy Boy book. But it's that because again, working in the comic book store, it's like, oh, I want you to read Batman. And they go, cool, what issue's out now? Oh, 1074. And even though I can try to talk to them like you don't have to read the other 1073 issues, you can start here. You can see it in their brain of like, no, 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 that's too much. I cannot get on board with that kind of homework. And so wanted to kind of create something that would free you of that and just like, no, just sit down, read the book. That's it.
yeah, and let's kind of the elephant in the room to what you just said. Sorry, Jason. Um, is people I hear it all the time. I see it everywhere. Oh, manga's outselling comics. Manga's outselling comics. Manga's killing comics. Blah blah blah. And I go, well, that's funny, because DC is like just destroying everybody right now in terms of sales volume with guess what? The most traditional thing of all, superheroes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They've made some smart plays. I think having Wade and Mora as kind of your headliners. Oh my gosh, right? You couldn't pick two
Right.
better creators. I mean, just today, Rob Liefeld was like, Dan Mora is today's GOAT. Like there is no one doing comics out there. And for no disrespect meant to Rob, but for somebody like Rob to say that, who, he's got a pretty good ego for a reason, for a good reason, is outstanding. And it says a lot about Dan Mora. But anyway, my point is really that, the reason manga appears to be selling better than comics, or maybe it is selling better than comics, I really don't care. It's because comics have done it the thing of creating these long drawn out histories that force us into feeling compelled to go back and collect these omnibuses and these this
Mhm.
and that before I can even start reading the damn book.
Yeah,
And it should not be that way, right? I remember picking up books in 7-Eleven just randomly. I'd be in the middle of Aquaman 31. I didn't care what happened in 30 because guess what? I had a caption box that said, before that, this is what
exactly.
happened.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've gotten away from some of the things that made comics accessible. And I think what DC has done a good job of, and what indie comics does a great job of, is one of two things: either being clear about where we are
Hmm.
from this in any given issue, or just having an entry point that is low and accessible, which is what indie comics is, because
Yep,
you're so close to one every time you buy a new indie comic title.
that's true.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's never you're not 371 issues in,
you're
and
three.
right, And so anyway, I think that's another advantage to doing this episodic, kind of approach. So
Yeah, love that. And I also just picked up Batman 1 by Matt Fraction, and I'm
how
going
good
like,
is
how
that? Oh
would
my
I
gosh!
know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
What's
There,
great
there are
too?
all of these pieces.
I
yeah.
read that and it was like I never once felt like I had to go back and figure out what the heck's going on.
Right.
I got the book, I read
Hmm.
it, and I knew what I needed to know. It was
Mm-hmm.
Batman, and it's beautiful because
Yeah,
God, Jorge's amazing,
yeah,
and Fraction does a great job of just
yeah.
dropping you right in the middle of the story.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Great storytelling structure, absolutely. And the fact that the two of you are attuned to that speaks to the value of the book and the value of the storytelling. Uh, Anywhere that I can go to find out more about your work, about this particular title, or anything else that you'd like to mention.
Well, right now Claymore is on Kickstarter. So if you go to Kickstarter and you just search for the word Claymore, it's I think the only thing that will come up. There might be a couple others, but it's the Western one. Um, find that. I'm on most social medias, and so if you go to Facebook or Blue Sky or TikTok or Threads or Instagram and just search for Scott Fogg, Scott standard spelling Fogg with two G's, you'll find me.
Oh, that's how you spell it.
Yeah, one of these
That's
days.
that's
That's
it.
called a
That's
callback,
it.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um,
Love it, love it.
you'll find me, and every single one of my bios, I've created a link tree that has all the links to everything you need to know about me. There's a link to the Kickstarter, there's a link um to Blind Squirrel Comics. Everything is on there. So that's probably where I would start.
And for me, it's pretty much my full name everywhere. It's at Charlie McElvy, on Twitter and Facebook. You can find me really easily and so forth. Instagram did kind of screw up my account a couple of years ago, and I got locked out. And after 90 days of fiddle farting with those guys, they go, "Oh, it's permanently locked out." I'm like, "You're full of crud," and they're like, "No, really." So there's a dot between my names now on Instagram and I guess Threads. Um, but you can also go to zionstudios.com, Xion studios, plural.com. And in it, you'll see all the stuff for Blind Squirrel. You see our catalog that's currently out there. You won't see Claymore on there because we will always do our Kickstarters first.
But Night Care is on there.
Yep. Oh, yes. Thank you. Night Care is on there. We'll fulfill and deliver, and then it'll probably be at least 30 to 45 days before we start putting it onto our online catalog. For general non-Kickstarter consumption, and eventually it will end up in your retail stores through our distribution partners. So, yeah, so look for us anywhere, and you find Scott, you'll find me. You find me, you'll find Scott. So we're good to go.
Yeah.
Well, many thanks to the two of you. Anything that we've missed that you want to make sure to include before we close out?
My wife just brought me like this beautiful little breakfast for
That
dinner.
is
Breakfast for
lovely.
dinner is the best.
Wow. The
That was
bacon
so,
is that's
she knew how
just
long my
adds to
day
the
was.
episode.
I know, right? She's just so sweet. She just kind of crept in and like just slides it over to me, and I knocked the knife off, which you probably heard bang on the mic. But
I did not. That was
oh,
very subtle, wonderful, and where would we be without the supportive family members? Where would
oh
we
my
Yeah.
be?
goodness, yes.
Yeah, this would not be happening.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, thank you. So no, I can't think of anything else. I think you just, if you want to, if you do want to follow what we're doing on I'm sorry, on Kickstarter at any given point, especially right now, go find the Claymore campaign and please give it a back. I think the entry point for digital is like $7,
Mhm.
and you'll get the full book, full color. We'll throw in a bunch of extras at some point if once we hit the stretch goals. Scott and I are already talking about what we're going to throw in there for everybody. So you'll get more than what you bargained for, generally speaking. And you can also follow Zion Studios and Blind Squirrel Comics. There are two different accounts on Kickstarter for two different kind of genres of books, if you will. So more of the mature on the Zion Studios and more of the traditional comics on the Blind Squirrel side.
Mhm.
Yep.
Well, many thanks again to you both, and glad to have you back anytime.